Hello, 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 and welcome to another stream from ADSR. I'm your host, Paul Nolan, and I'm here once again to display the wonders of Arturia. It seems to be Arturia week here at ADSR, and why not? Because today we have the brand new FX Collection Volume 4. And there are 4 new units for us to look at, and there is a whole bunch of other options and new features and facilities and presets and other goodies that we are going to get into. So to celebrate, Arturia are offering the FX Collection 4 for $200 off until June the 20th. So basically it is currently priced at $299 instead of its full price, which is $499. And let me tell you, having had a little play around with this in the last 48 hours or so, definitely worth your investment for the new modules, for the added facilities and new options and new controls that you have with the existing bunch of plugins and effects that you have within the Arturia FX collection. Absolutely wonderful, and we are going to waste no time and get straight into it. Before we do that, obviously, we get to do this on a regular basis, and we'd love to continue to do this. And we are going to ask you to hit that subscribe button because, you've got to do the YouTube thing, haven't you? And also you can, as they say in the YouTube trade, you can stick it to the algorithm when you click it. Yep, it is that notification bell. You can also share it with all your music production nerd friends who are into this type of stuff. And that means we can share more knowledge, more great understandings and teachings, as well as showcase these amazing plugins. And of course, keep it locked to adsrsounds.com. It is exactly where you need to be for everything you need, be it plugins, be it courses, be it sample packs, preset packs, you name it. It's all under the hood, shall we say. Okay, so we're going to move straight into Ableton Live. We're back in Ableton because obviously the stream we did a couple of nights ago on Wednesday, we were in Logic because I was in film score mode with all the lovely augmented stuff, which is also on sale at the moment. If you haven't seen that stream, would highly recommend, even if I do say so myself, checking it out, especially if you're into film scores and want to learn about film trailers. We're back in home territory for me tonight. We're back into banger territory. So I've got this nice little progressive house ditty going, shall we say. Let's have a little listen. And what you'll be able to see straight away is that this session is packed full of Arturia FX Volume 4 plugins. And let me tell you, just phenomenal, absolutely beautiful renderings of classic gear with Arturia's own unique spin, like they do with the V collection, where they take classics and they add their own little unique update and unique facilities and unique possibilities that the original units maybe didn't have, and they bring them up to date for the modern music production palette and the capability of plugins, shall we say. So these sounds really open out, so I've kind of pared everything back a little bit. But we're going to start off by having a little look at the drums, because what I've got on the bus here is the Bus Force. Now, this is something that we've had previously in the FX collection. However, you've got this ability here to be able to effectively offset the various different trims and everything else, and it just works an absolute treat. And I've really enjoyed putting this on my drum bus in recent times. So if we just play the drums in complete solo here, so nice and chunky. Again, it's called Congas for Hernan. Read into that what you will. Hello, Monsieur Cataneo, if you are watching. Anyway, what I've got going here is this really amazing ability to actually do parallel processing on a bus, which I'm really, really liking, because predominantly if I have to do parallel compression, for example, I have to send to a return track and then set up my compressor and blend it in and everything else. And I can just do it under one roof here, and it just absolutely makes all of the difference. And being able to then decide how much of the dry I want to put in, how much of the compression I want to put in, how much saturation, and you can really, go to town with it. And, one of the things I'm really enjoying with the Effects Collection 4 is that on a lot of these plugins now, you have the oversampling quality. So again, I'm pretty fortunate to be streaming tonight on a pretty much brand new M2 Pro Mac Mini that I've just upgraded to, and I can get away with doing like an oversampling quality at render level here. However, you've also got the studio possibility, so that will allow us to kind of maybe be a little more, a little bit more light on CPU, and then once we come to render, once we do the bounce, as we say, you could swap that out into the render stage and then be able to output it from there. So it's a beautiful thing. So yeah, let's just have a little listen to it without, and we'll get into what it's actually doing. So yeah, I'm adding in, again, this compression path and then a saturation path. So what we can actually do is take these guys out. And you can hear, obviously, I'm blending in a lot of the dry. This is all just this element here. And if I just do a little undo back and then back, and I'll take that dry path out, you can hear that saturation. Not doing a great deal, but it's definitely working. And I can add some harmonics to that if I wanted to. Just give it a bit of crispiness, a bit of filth, a bit of dirt. A little bit of overdrive there as well. But what you notice, like, things aren't really clipping because of this new feature that, is in terms of like offsetting the gain, essentially. Overdrive gain compensation is what we would call it here. And it just allows you to be a little bit more flexible and maybe be a bit more aggressive, and you've got a little bit more margin for error. With saturators and any form of distortion, it can be quite a difficult thing to get right. The sweet spot seems to be like threading the eye of a needle while you're in the middle of a haystack, shall we say. And with this, it just makes it a little bit easier to get everything blended in. So yeah, I'm going to go a little bit harder on the overdrive, and then you've got some compression going on here, which, I can also blend in. Again, I don't want to go too crazy. It has to sound quite transparent. Add a little bit of that dry in. So yeah, this is a beautiful bus, parallel compression, saturation, pretty much everything you need and everything that you do in 4 or 5 plugins within one, which seems to be a bit of a theme with Arturia, where it's just saving such an amount of effort and work and trying to get the right balance and get plugins to work together properly and everything else. So as a big fan of putting some bus compression on my drums and grouping everything into one category of instruments, this is an absolute lifesaver. So we'll go through the sounds individually, one at a time, and we'll look at this stab. So this stab's in pigments, which is something I've come up with. And again, this sound will really open up. So really, it's not so much about the sound, because obviously Pigment's one of my favourite synths. has, effectively just become my go-to for all forms of granular processing. It's more what we've got on the return channels. So again, with it being an effects collection, you've got these elements here that are really, really quite useful. And from here, I've got this beautiful tape 201 delay. So obviously for those of you who may be particularly nerdy like I am, you'll know that this kind of references a very particular famous kind of model of delay. It might be a Roland Space Echo, maybe, we don't know for sure, but it is a fantastic delay, and I want to just give that delay a little bit more movement. And this is a beautiful alternative to something like, say, for example, you get stock in Ableton. Like one of my favorite delay plugins in Ableton is Echo. And this really does allow to, give a bit more flavor. I love really vibey, tapey style, dubby style delays. I've always been a massive fan of them. And this is absolutely no exception to it. So if we just isolate and play the tape delay solo, that's the exact sound of the tape delay itself. I've just got it soloed underneath my camera here, and it's a beautiful sound. And what I'll do is just send a little bit more over so we can hear it a bit better. Then you've got this input drive sounding really beefy on the input. And again, you can use a couple of different preamps, and you've got a little bit of peaking going on there, a little bit of red light, which is always good. Clean input there, a bit more straight. The original preamp here for the 201, and then a germanium preamp from Arturia. I've got it in a ping pong mode, just like adapted the default. And again, I can change the mode selector here. That's quite an interesting element there. We can maybe some of the modes definitely surprise you in terms of the rate sync. That's quite nice. And again, it has this element of going into just repeats here and then into reverb echo here. So I'm going to leave it on that original 5 because it's quite nice. Sometimes it gets a little bit dense, shall we say. On the send there because I've hit the input drive quite hard. And again, the actual delay itself, I've got an 8th on the right side and a 1/8 dotted on the left side. Nice little bit of intensity, which is again effectively feedback, and again 100% wet because I've got it on a return channel. And going on to we're going to have a first look at one of the new modules here in the FX Collection 4. It is one of the other ones. We're going to get into those shortly. This is the LX24, and actually this is where some of the new features of the existing plugins really come into it, where you've got the ability to resize, which is a beautiful thing because again, it's quite a small unit. But what I really love about this is the simplicity, because again, having used a hardware version of the LX24 previously, it's a really great unit, and it's just got this classic 80s style, it really did sum up the sound of the 80s essentially. And it is one of the new units, one of the 4 new units. Sorry about that. I was being a little bit confused about the resizing as a feature as well. So yeah, the LX24 is brand new to the FX collection, and I've got it in this large hall setting, and I've just dropped down the bass offset. I love big, long reverbs that I can then potentially use over a number of different sounds. And then I can kind of balance and possibly do some resampling, possibly do some sound design with it as well. Quite a lot of damping, or the damping's quite high up. It's around about 6.6 kilohertz, as you can see here. Medium distance, dry and wet, and I can also lock that if I want to as well. And then, as you've seen, I'll just give you a bit of a sneak peek about it. There's an advanced view which completely changes the UI and makes it a lot more, shall we say, modern, but it gives you so much more control because you've got the possibility of working with a ducker and being able to feed in a sidechain input, which is really cool. And I'm loving this element here on the master where I can dial in the amount of brightness, the stereo width, which I've got incredibly wide because I love reverbs that are super wide, yet still give you enough to be able to hear them in mono because, again, mono compatibility and mixdown is something that you do still need to think about, despite what some people on YouTube say. And ultimately, I can decide and dial in the reverb level. So I've tweaked this initial preset here called Atmos, and I've given it a crossover around about 1,000. I've done the bass offset all the way down. That is basically just rolling off the low end. Again, about 8.5 seconds decay. Dampen it around about 6.5K, like we said before. And then the distance control, I've kept it not too high, but quite happy with that. And again, you've got these 3 modes as well. So you've got vintage 12, and again, an original filtered 12-bit converter, which again, 12-bit was very prominent in the 80s. You got them in a lot of the samplers that actually, Arturia have done a great job of emulating. One of which is what's it called? The sampler that they've done, the emulator. Yeah, it is the emulator, which, is a classic, the EMU emulator, which is a classic old school synth sampler, I should say. And effectively, it's got that 12-bit crunchy sort of old school hip hop vibe. This one got a filtered 24-bits converter and then an unfiltered one here, which again has got a more modern, more clean kind of sound. And I've set it to this large concert hall. So if we were to listen to this again in isolation, just this really lovely musical transparent delay. And if I just a lovely tail, and again super transparent and just sit in the track like it feels like it should be there. It's one thing I look out for when selecting reverbs. It has to feel like it's gluing itself into the track, and this LX24 absolutely does that. Not all reverb plugins have that feeling of integration. Sometimes they can feel quite separate, which is unfortunate because what we're using the reverb to do is to create what I like to call like the physics of the world that the track exists within. I'm a bit of a reverb philosopher, you may have noticed. And I like to understand and process and approach reverbs like any other instrument in the mixdown. I EQ them, I level them, I manage their stereo image, I compress them if necessary. I treat them at the same love and attention as my main melodic synths, essentially. And the LX24 makes that beautiful because it really does have this incredible sound, as you've heard. So again, becoming very, very quickly one of my go-to reverbs. I love the large hall. You've got these lovely vocal plates. I'm also a massive fan of plate reverbs. The plate 140, the EMT emulation that Arturia did a short while back is another one that I absolutely adore that is available in this collection, and absolutely beautiful and great again on percussion. You've got great plates, halls, just a great range. And again, if it's a little small for you, you can make that as big as you want. It scales beautifully from a graphical standpoint. An absolutely stunning reverb that I'm pretty happy with the sound with here. So moving on, because there is another sound and another module that I really want to preview. There's a few of them here, actually. We'll get into these pads And then we'll look at the sub bass and we'll look at the ARP, because this has got some really juicy stuff going on. So what I want to do is, again, I want to add in another one or a couple of our newer modules available in FX Collection 4, which is Filter MS20. So literally, it does what it says on the tin, as we like to say in England. It is the filter module with added official sort of, bells and whistles, shall we say. Again, that lovely modernization and unique tweakability and extra possibility that Arturia love to put into these plugins. So it's got that, again, that you can probably tell here it's referencing a certain French act in terms of how it looks here. It's that classic squelchy filtered sound. So I've got it on this, what I'm calling a pad, but I'm going to explain the process of how I came to this pad. And one of the other, new modules that we've got here is Coldfire, which is a really, really interesting, module here, really interesting plugin that can do some pretty wild stuff. But first of all, what I want to do is play the sound itself, and I'm going to just roll this filter back. And there's a whole heap of different things going on. And again, even the movement is coming from the Filter MS20. And even the more tremolo, almost like kind of stutter, 16th note, kind of gated kind of feel is not quite dissipating, because the raw sound itself is a bit of a sound design project. And what I mean by that is there's 3 channels in the group here that you can see. And what I've got here is an audio file that I've sliced and then triggered using various different notes on the keyboard in this 16th note pattern. And it really does, in this 8th note pattern, I should say. And it just really helps with like creating something very interesting out of what was originally a Pigments preset. So say, for example, I can add that in here. We can have a little look at this. Bada boom. And yeah, it's a default. All I've done is loaded in this particular sound. And if I play that, and this is just a granular preset. And then I've played the chord progression of the track. And it's got this really amazing, quite cinematic kind of feel. Again, I like to blend my film scoring with my techno, and my techno with my film scoring. So, it's kind of a bit of a motif that I'm trying to build here. But then what I did is I've taken that sound and then I have resampled it into this channel here, which, after a little bit of moving around, it sounds like this. It sounds exactly the same. However, what I like to do is experiment with various different warp modes, and I like to be able to put the preserve here in the bottom left-hand corner. I like to put that into 16ths, and then I like to make the envelope travel just forwards and stop, so it doesn't fit or fill any gaps in when it's being extremely pitch corrected or transposed, or in terms of like changing the volume envelope, etc. And then I like to stutter it using this envelope. You can do this on any audio file in Ableton, by the way. And that's what gave me the idea to create that. As you can hear, it's a bit stop-start. And I can knock it back down to just a click if I need to. So that gave me an idea that I'd like to do something, very stuttery, very repeated. And then the idea came to drop this into a simpler as an audio file, and then be able to find on the keyboard the right notes. So it's got that kind of droney kind of vibe to it. Again, if I were to There you go. So it's got this really lovely kind of, you know, undulating pattern, shall we say, which I can then add in a little bit more with the... And say, for example, if I was to just play that with the drums. And then this can be automated. And balanced. And then I can also place a peak. Add a bit more drive if I want to. And I've got a master cutoff that works as a low pass on, you know, turning it anti-clockwise from 12 o'clock, and then a high pass if I turn clockwise from 12 o'clock there. And it's a phenomenal element. And again, you've got a function generator here, which you can then map to various different elements, which is very, very cool. And again, if we actually look at that in the other instance, because this is just doing very, very basic filtering, that's why it's slightly ahead on the signal chain here. We've got the ability to just open up here, and you can see that stutter. So you can create these amazing like envelope patterns, and then as you can see, you know, they're mapped here again, just to make that a little bit bigger. You can actually see it mapped here on that step sequencer, and again, it gives us that little bit of a stutter as well as that function generator. And you can see when you highlight over it, it shows you exactly what it's mapped to. So it's mapped to all kinds of different stuff: low pass, peak, high pass, peak, the dry and wet, etc., etc. And then this step sequencer here is mapped to the stereo, which will again manipulate stereo width. And then obviously you can change the rate to a sync, and it's on 16ths. So I can play around with that. For example, and you can see that rate change in there, which is quite a cool and quite a useful thing. Now, if I want to play around here, and obviously you have to be accurate around your automations. You know, a little bit more difficult for me to do with a pen and a stylus, but hey, all good. So much possibility here. And again, adapted that 16th dirty gate preset. And from here, we'll have a look at Coldfire, which is our brand new module alongside the Filter MS-20. And this is a really interesting one. So you've basically got two sides to it, and you can, you know, blend between the two, and you can see the balance between, that's a bit of a mix. And again, you've got a dry wet and various different things. Now I've got this set to just like a pad boost, which is a subtle effect. And what we'll do is we'll turn off all of our other plugins here, including the Filter MS-20. We'll just leave Coldfire on its own, and we'll be able to hear its effect. And you can hear how it's brought everything forward. Now, the pad boost here was actually just a one-sided element. And what I've done is I've added this tube into proceeding, so it would sound like this otherwise. And it's really the tube that's brought elements out. And again, it's a mid-side blend here, which is quite cool. So you can change the routing to mid-side, band splits, parallels, etc. And again, you can hear the tape. A little bit of flanging, a bit of phasing going on there. Very, very cool. And you get that really nice blend between the two, and you get this really interesting, quite, you know, beautiful, unique read out here to get a vibe of what's actually going on. Again, these oversampling quality settings are here in Coldfire and sounding great. So again, you've got studio and render quality. And we can flick through some of the other presets here. And again, you can get a little bit more advanced. And you've got a full modulation section. You've got LFOs. You've got a couple of them here. You've got a couple of function envelopes here. And effectively, you know, if you've been, you know, following Arturia for any point in time, or you're in any way comfortable with pigments as a synthesizer, this is looking like home turf for you. Again, you've got an envelope generator as well and a sequencer. So you can go a bit crazy with it. So in terms of what we've got going on here, there's a whole heap of different things we can do. And again, you've got delays here. You can try things like elastic delay. So again, we can... craziness. We can blend that into the background. So insane for sound design. Like from here, what I would do is look towards resampling that, and then actually, you know, this full thing. What I would look to do here is, as I say, I would want to create a new audio channel, and I would take audio from resampling, record arm it, and then we take it from here. And that will do. And you've got that ability then to be able to cut that, place it over the top of a track, turn it into a transitional effect, do whatever you need to do. So that's super cool. So from here, we can look at some of the other presets that we've got. So Incepted. Oh dear, that sounds like we're going down the rabbit hole. So brace yourselves, kids. It could get interesting. Oh, that's beautiful. Listen to that. I'm going to need to put the drums underneath this now. Do bear with me. There's those transitional effects. Adding in our sub bass. Bring some of our return C in here. Incredible. So yeah, we're self-generating things like transitional effects, rises, little bits of ear candy that keep records like this super interesting. And that's what I think is the most important thing, actually. Rather than just like spooling through folder upon folder of samples and boring yourself to tears, why not participate in something that I call contextual sound design, where effectively you are processing various different elements of your own tracks and then being able to resample them and recontextualize them and repurpose them as things like rises, little reverses, little transitional effects. You know, it always works so much better because you're making it from the DNA of the track itself. And Coldfire here has got me really quite excited here because there's a whole heap of different things that we can do. And again, if you think about that kind of like lovely stutteriness, and then using that in conjunction with, you know, something like, for example, on here, on this one here, there we go. And then we can pump in so working in conjunction with the MS-20 and Coldfire together. And then bringing in this beautiful granular sound. And if you know anything about me, you know that I love a granular effect. I've been a massive fan of granular sampling, granular resynthesis, and indeed now granular synthesis for years and years and years. And I first heard about it following the likes of Junkie XL, Charlie May, and Sasha when I was first learning how to make music, and fell down the rabbit hole at audio engineering school. And then lo and behold, you know, 9 years later, I am sat in a studio in Los Angeles with Sasha himself actually making an album. And it was, yeah, again, wild times. Very, very grateful for it all. And what I learned about granular synthesis in that time is absolutely huge. And I can tell you that Fragments is one of the best granular effects plugins out there. It effectively takes and enhances a lot of what was perfected in Pigments and makes it into an external effect, which means you can actually put it on anything. And it really does the business. And again, I've adapted the original preset that it opens with. I've kind of done that deliberately this week just to kind of show how powerful these plugins are, you know, out of the box. I did that several times with the Augmented collection a couple of nights back. And it shows you just how much power is available to you from the opening screen. And you can hear very, very nicely here. If I were to, you know, I've got a couple of sounds going to this particular plugin here, and if I just open that up a little bit, again, they scale beautifully. And this lovely filtery, watery wave, again, all ocean sweep being a beautiful part of it. Opening that up. Actually feel like I'm tripping looking at this readout here. So you've got these different like 12 pitch fifths. You've got, you know, the repitching going on there, which is why it's coming out so much nicer and higher. A whole host of new modulation options here, which makes things a lot easier. And again, you've got a multi-filter here, which is what's giving it that wavy kind of vibe. And we can modulate with that. No reverb on this whatsoever here, but we can add that in. And it can be funny. It can be fun to actually put the whole sound underneath a reverb, just to give it that extra, shall we say, you know, splash. And that wash of reverb makes the whole sound feel like it's kind of like crashing over you. Again, Ocean Sweep being a very, very, very apt name for this. And again, we can do all sorts of really interesting stuff with this as well. So, you know, you've got reverb elements, You've got pitched stuff like, again, it's got 40 new presets. And, again, just digging into these are absolutely stunning. So, again, I'm just going to pick one here, Cinematosis, Dark Cloud. Let's go for Dark Cloud and see what it comes out with. And again, stunning. And you can freeze that there. And then the playhead keeps playing. Brilliant. Go for Cinematosis. Oh dear. A little bit lower in volume, but chaos. Beautiful. This is the type of chaos I absolutely love in granular synthesis. You've got no idea what's going to happen next. Let's go for Smooth Drone. Again, more of these beautiful transitional effects that can be resampled. Stunning. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. Because I'm loving this glacial element. And what I love to do with stuff like fragments is I like to send them to reverbs. So one of the things I've done here is, you might be able to see this on top of my head here on the screen, but the sends on the return channels themselves are deactivated by default because they want to prevent you from, or Ableton wants to prevent you from accidentally feeding back on itself. So again, I would never, well, I would, but I would do it in a different circumstance and not wear headphones and put a limiter on the channel. I could quite easily feed return C back onto send C, effectively creating a feedback loop. You can do some really interesting things with that. Again, do it at low volumes. Be very careful. I have nearly blown my head off and nearly deafened myself on occasion doing that. Put a limiter on the channel, see what comes out of it. Again, on your own head, be it. I'm not recommending you do it, but it is a sound design option. But what you can do is you can right click here and you can either disable or enable the send. So what I've got here is return C being sent into the Lex 24, the LX24 reverb here. So you get this stunning pad-like element, which has this extra reverb in with the LX. Absolutely gorgeous. Play that in context. So you get that real lovely cinematic, cosmic, almost like borderline, quite, psychedelic kind of vibe, which is what I absolutely love. So the final new unit that we've not looked at yet is this one. It's a emulation of a classic, what's called a Leslie cabinet. And if you don't know what a Leslie cabinet is, it basically is a speaker cabinet essentially with rotating horns. And in this particular classic case, we have two of them. We have a bass horn and we have a treble horn, and the actual speakers themselves can rotate. Or we have baffles in one of the sort of classic elements there. Classic organs like the B3 had Leslie cabinets built into them, and it creates really incredibly interesting modulations. So I've had this completely off up to now. We're quite familiar with this sound. So what I'm going to do is just gently and surely bring this in. Again, this is the non-advanced view, and we're going to talk about what it can do here. Bring that up in level a bit more. Put that on the plugin. And you can kind of feel this like stereo spaciousness happening. That circular element, and you can see that movement here. So there's some beautiful possibilities here. If I just stop on the speed control here, you get some movements and modulation, but then you've got that emptiness, that kind of almost flangey kind of element going on. And again, we can put that into a fast mode, actually. Crazy. And then add stereo width. That's super wide. So it's kind of like a frequency-specific auto pan with like extras and extra modulation and possibility. So to run through it, I've got a valve or an op-amp preamp here, so we can kind of do some nice crunchy, distorted inputs here. So we can just turn the volume on the output down a little bit, and we'll push that nicely. Very cool. And again, I've got this bias towards the treble at the moment, which is why you can hear the high end essentially, like really, really, swirling around. And I can bias that on the other side towards the lower end. And that's where you get the really interesting bits of distortion. And as you can hear, it's not that difficult to clip the bass. So one of the things you can do is actually click this dry bass button, which bypasses the rotor. So it gives you the clean low end. So it's just top end. Again, this rotor balance is kind of like a filter, a rudimentary filter. This is amazing for adding movement. And I can slow that down. Again, I can have that in hertz, or I can put that on a sync. Set that to like 8 bars so it moves and modulates nicely over time for drones like this, granular drones. Or I can... And again, if you're asking if you can actually make that faster again, you can change it from a circular motion into a figure of 8. And again, you have a distance, which almost gives it kind of, again, that flanged reverb kind of effect. Super cool. So again, I'm going to return that to something a bit more sensible. Amazing. And then blend that, because it's a bit heavy. when it's all completely there, but this just gives such beautiful modulation. So we can add that in with the rest. Just open up the amp bar bit. And that ARP's sitting beautifully with the reverb on the LX24, works brilliantly with that pluck. And you've got this lovely breakdown going. And finally we'll come to the sub bass, because again it's another Pigments, very simple kind of Reese bass style sub that I've made here, just from a default patch. 3 oscillators, all sawtooth waves, really not that complicated. And you can hear we've got a filter MS-20 on here. And again, if we open that up, just gives that thickness. Beautiful. And again, that's all that needs to do, is to just sit in the background. However, one of the things I am doing here is using a FET76. Again, classic Yuri 1176. Sounds absolutely great. Again, you can link the inputs and the outputs if you so choose. As you can see. And again, you've got the ability to do more than what the original unit could do. So again, external sidechaining. You've got the advanced sidechain control here, where it's mid-side or whatever it needs to be. Compression range, and again you can listen to that sidechain there as well. Very, very impressive. And I love 76s. I use them on, well, most things, but it's sounding particularly well on this sub bass. Now we have the, the filter MS-20 on as well, just gives it that thickness. So as you can hear, the enhancement that the FX Collection 4 is giving is absolutely massive, especially with the 4 new modules. I love the sound of that rotary CLS 22.2. The cold fire is doing wonders to that pad as well. As you can hear, the filter MS-20, beautiful, thick, squelchy sound. And again, the LX24 is just a beautiful, beautiful reverb that is well worth the investment. So I think I know what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the evening once I finish this stream. This little banger's going to get finished, I think, which is going to be very nice indeed. Make sure I hit Command and S to save that, because I quite like some of the little changes that I've made through proceedings this evening. So what we'll do is we'll just pull back the curtain here, and we shall have a little look at the chat. Jai Zaza, yes, mate. Good to see you, as per usual. ADSR, yes. Eric Clapton did used to play through a Leslie, and also the likes of Jimi Hendrix as well. Yeah, Lady Boy, hello, mate. Good to see it again. Not too hot this time of the year. A few more weeks and it starts to get crazy hot for an Englishman. Definitely. We love complaining about the weather, us English people, don't we? Yeah. Hello, Cami Drian. Good to see you. It is some interactive music, 3D music. Excellent. Shut down computer. Sometimes silence makes beats more simple and clean. what we can use for silence. Definitely, sometimes it's not about the note you put in, it's about the note you leave out. So very, very cool. Nice beat, thanks, Jai. Yeah, Cold Fire is excellent, nicked. It's also useful for things like parallel distortion on drums and more subtle stuff. Yeah, as you heard, I put some nice, more subtle warming and widening on the pad. Really, really cool. He already has FX Collection 3. Well done, mate. I mean, the upgrade's not loads of money, but it's worth it. I mean, I'm biased, but I think it is. Excellent. It is CPU intense. Like I say, I'm in a very grateful position that I've just been able to buy one of these absolutely, thermonuclear powered Mac Minis, basically, and I can, sort of just do whatever I want and stream at the same time. So I'm very, very lucky where that's concerned, but definitely worth it. And again, you've got those render settings as well. Don't forget, you can put them in studio mode on the oversample and then pop them into render for the best quality on the way out. So there are ways and means around it. Yeah, it's a really nice reverb. Yes, definitely. Yeah, you got the LX38. Yep, 24 is great. Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. So yeah, brilliant stuff, guys. It's been a great little stream again this evening, just to get the weekend started. If you're, in an earlier time zone, good morning, good afternoon. It's just gonna go 7 o'clock here any moment in Old Blighty. It's Friday night, and I think I'm going to take my dog for a walk, have a cheeky pint of Guinness, and then I'm going to get back into the studio for a bit of a late one. And you may well see me finish this in a good time. So I wish you all a fantastic weekend. It's an absolute pleasure being here, as per usual. And yeah, thank you to the crew at ADSR. Again, don't forget, it is $200 off for FX Collection 4 through June 20th. You can get that from adsrsounds.com. Obviously, the only place you need for all your plugin and synth needs and sample packs and everything else you need. I have obviously been Paul Nolan. You can find me online on Instagram at Paul Nolan Sound. You can find me over at transition.studio, which is our artist development community, which we've had some wonderful success recently. The latest version of Hernan Cataneo's Resident podcast, the first track was done by one of our members, Augustin, so congratulations to him. Big shout out to him and the MYT fam. And yes, there's going to be plenty more of these coming over the next few weeks. So once again, it's been a pleasure and an honor and a privilege to guide you through these wonderful plugins and some production techniques. It's been a really fun week. Thanks to Arturia for the amazing stuff as well and the amazing tools. And we look forward to seeing more of it in future. But for now, that'll be it. Look after yourselves, guys. Much love. See you soon. Take it easy. Goodbye.